Hello there everyone, it is Toby from TIJ Music and welcome to a brand new video. Today it is time for an album review. We are going back to 1968 today for Neil Diamond's third album, Velvet, Gloves and Spit. Now this one might be a little bit obscure to review after what I've reviewed on the channel so far, but I thought I want to make a start reviewing Neil Diamond stuff because you may or may not know I am a big Neil Diamond fan. And probably out of all the artists I listen to, I know the most, and I've listened to the most of any artist of Neil Diamond's music. And you might ask why that is. It's such a strange artist to listen to in the excess that I've listened to Neil Diamond in, particularly because I like rock music, and you know, it doesn't really fit that. But about 4 or 5, I think it's 5 years ago now. Bear in mind I'm only 19, so you've got to take that into a bit of consideration. About 5 years ago now, I listened to Hot August Night for the first time. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Neil Diamond's output, that basically is Neil Diamond's best live album. Again, open to interpretation, but I don't think it is. It's his best live album, full stop. And it's probably his best known album, full stop as well. So I listened to all that. It's a double album full of his greatest hits, really. His greatest early hits, of course. This was released in 1972. And after that, I went to look at the catalogue. I listened to Moods, I listened to Stones, and then when a bit later I listened... Actually, to be fair, I'm actually wrong there. The first record I listened to by Neil Diamond is Melody Road, his newest album from 2014. From there, I then went and listened to Hot August Night. But I might well do a retrospective on Neil Diamond at some point and talk more in depth about how I discovered his music and how I think of his music as a whole. And I'll give little inklings of that in this video. But today we are talking about Neil Diamond's first album on the Uni label. Now, his first two albums, The Feel of Neil Diamond and Just For You, were both on the Bang Records label. Now, his first album, The Feel of Neil Diamond, was very much a compilation of cover tracks, the likes of La Bamba, Monday Monday, Hanky Panky, but a few really good tracks. Of course, you will know probably if you're a Neil Diamond fan, Solitary Man, another cover, Red Rubber Ball. Trying to think, what else did he write on that album? I think Do It was on that album, wasn't it? As well as I've Got the Feeling. Oh no, that's a good track. But his next album, Just For You, was absolutely sublime, and you would very much mistake that for a compilation album because the quality on that album is quite amazing. But the crucial thing is that Just For You album has never been made available in the UK. The Feel of Neil Diamond was made available in the UK on London Records as opposed to Bang Records, but again, it was pretty rare. So that's why I'm starting here. Velvet, Gloves and Spit was the first, I wouldn't say well-known album of Neil Diamond, but it was the most accessible Neil Diamond album. Again, apologies for the sun being out there, but there's not much I can do about that. I'm not a weather god. But anyway, this album was released in 1968, the 15th of October 1968, and I've actually got the original UK pressing. Now, you might ask, hang on a minute, Toby, that cover is different to what's in the corner. Well, I can explain that. From what I understand on Discogs, the record collecting website, the cover that's used there, that I've just shown you, was obviously used in the UK. The cover that's there, on that little picture there in the US, was never made available in the UK, but that was the original album sleeve. But this was the album cover in the UK, just a picture of Neil Diamond. And I suppose it's not all that different to the original, although the back cover is a little bit suspect, with Neil Diamond and a random mannequin with... Yeah, I don't need to describe that. But interestingly, this was released with a different track list into its reissue, and I'll talk about the significance of its reissue in a little while. It's not particularly anything different. We've got, on this version, we've got Broad Old Woman, 6am Insanity, as opposed to the Pot Smoker song, which was on most of the pressings, and that was only in the UK that track was used, Broad Old Woman, brackets 6am Insanity. But this was a different track listing to this, the reissue, and this is what I'm going to focus on today, the 1970 reissue of Velvet, Gloves and Spit. Now, this is the most widely known album on Spotify. This is the album art that's used, and it is the most well-known version of this album, including Side 1, 5 tracks, 2-bit Manchild, a modern day version of Love, Honey Dripping Times, the Pot Smoker song, which wasn't on the other issue, and Brooklyn Roads. And then on Side 2, Sunday Sun, Holiday in Blues, Practically Newborn, Knackelflerg and Merry Go Round, as well as at the start of side 2 a rearrangement of his earlier song Shiloh. It was released on the Bang Records album Just For You, but was rejected as a single by Bang Records, so it was used with a different arrangement on the Velvet Gloves and Spit album, and it's used to quite good effect. But in terms of this review, I'm not going to focus on that track because it's effectively just a remake of the original track. So I want to focus on the 10 original tracks that are on this album, all written by Neil Diamond, a completely original album. The album also produced by Tom Catalano, who is known for his long-standing collaboration with Neil Diamond. He produced every single album from this one all the way up to Beautiful Noise, which of course Robbie Robertson from the band produced. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else in terms of the background we need to go through. Just a quick one. It was his first album again for Uni. 3 low charting singles on the album, so track number 5 on here, Brooklyn Road, was released and went to number 58 in the US charts, that is. 2-Bit Manchild, the opening track, went to number 66 in the US charts, and Sunday Sun went to number 68 in the US charts. But crucially, the re-release of Shiloh went to number 24 in the US charts, which beat the concurrently released single, because of course this was released a little bit later. In 1970, the albums Touching You, Touching Me and Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show had been released by then. So Until It's Time For You To Go was the track that was released from Touching You, Touching Me, his 1969 album. I know it's very tough to keep up. And that reached number 53. So basically Shiloh got the upper hand on it. But yeah, let's talk about the tracks from this album, shall we? Let's get into it. So there are 10 tracks, again, 2 sides, of course, of vinyl, of 5 tracks. Again, we start with 2-Bit Manchild, a modern day version of Love, Honey Dripping Times, the Pot Smoker song Brooklyn Roads, and then side 2, Sunday Sun, Holiday in Blues, Practically Newborn, Knackelflerg and Merry Go Round. And on the back here I have absolutely no idea what Neil means, but fair enough. And half of her was Velvet Gloves, the other half being Spit. That sun was winding me up, so I've shut the curtain. Right, let's have a look at the first track on the album then. So 2-Bit Manchild, the opening track, track number 1. How long is the track? Comes in at just over 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 6 seconds, and it's a nice guitar-led lick. Guitar-led, I mean the other way around. A nice guitar lick-led opening to the album. It's good instrumentation used here, and you know there's some fairly catchy lyrics. It's not his best track, but it's catchy. It's an autobiographical track actually about the Brill Building era of the early 60s. Not him building a building called the Brill Building, but he was involved in the New York scene, and the Brill Building was basically where Neil Diamond learned his trade. Not going into too much detail, but yeah, that's basically where he learned his trade. And as I said, this one went to number 66 in the US with Broad Old Woman on the B-side. It's a decent track, and it's certainly worth a 7 out of 10 in my point of view. We then move on to track number 2, a modern day version of Love. And this is a bit of an underrated classic from Neil Diamond's catalogue. It was included on the 2 CD album Hot August Night, and I say 2 CD because it wasn't included on the LP version, but was later put in for the CD reissue, and it sounds brilliant on there. It's a nice slow paced track, and here it just sounds fantastic. 2 minutes 49, that one for me gets an 8 out of 10. Brilliant. Number 3, track number 3, Honey Dripping Times, the shortest track of the album, comes in at just over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 6 seconds it said on here, although my version is 1 minute and 59, so make of that what you will. It's, unfortunately, the first track on the album that's a little bit throwaway for me. It's something that you'll hear a lot of people who talk about Neil Diamond say, that he had some really good tracks on his albums, but he never had, possibly apart from Beautiful Noise, the complete album, and by that I mean an album where it's consistent and every track is good. With Neil Diamond, there's just all in some way, always some album filler. And I don't know why that is, but that's just always the way it is with Neil Diamond. I might be wrong there. Some people might say, oh no, every track he's done is brilliant, which, even as a big fan of his, you have to say that's ridiculous, because there are some really bad tracks that Neil Diamond has recorded. And this is by far and away not the worst track he's recorded, but it just doesn't go anywhere for me, and just doesn't do justice either for the songwriting capabilities that Neil Diamond really has. I mean, you know, it's all baby, 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 and la 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 for about 40 seconds of the track. I mean, you've only got 2 minutes to play with. That tells you something about the quality of the track, really. So a 5 out of 10 for me, and that's kind, really. It's just album filler, that track. And then track number 4. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this one either. These 2 tracks are luckily the weakest on the album. And this is the Pot Smoker song. Now, it's a really strange song choice from Neil Diamond. It's a serious song choice, but it really isn't conveyed very well. On the back cover you will see it says, "Much credit for the Pot Smokers song must go to the kids of Phoenix House in New York City. Without the cooperation and frankness of these young ex-drug addicts who are still struggling to find their way back, this song never could have been done." And I like how they put song in quotation marks, because it is a song in quotation marks. It's like some other reviewer said, and I'm going to nick it because it sounds brilliant. It's almost like La Bamba with interviews in the middle, where like, pot, give me some pot, and then it'd be like, "Well, I started on pot when I was 14. It's such a bizarre track. You know, you can't tell whether it's serious or sarcastic. It's a very strange track, and it's a serious misstep from Neil Diamond. So a 4 out of 10 for this one, and that seriously is being very kind to Neil. But the next track on the album, the last track of side 1, and this is exactly why this is a good album. Not just this track, but this is outstanding. I'm talking about Brooklyn Roads. This, for me, is a 10 out of 10. You know, it's one of Neil Diamond's all-time best tracks. It's his first single, actually, for Uni Records, and it's just a brilliant story. Autobiographical, of course, about Neil Diamond being brought up in Brooklyn. And the mid-section, the instrumental section, is just sublime. And I know he performed this in 2008 at the Madison Square Garden concert. He got quite emotional because it's very autobiographical, 40 years actually after it was released. And it's a brilliant track. It's probably one of Neil Diamond's best. For me, it's got to be in his top 5 tracks of all time. And the instrumentation here, everything that goes into it, the lyrics, the music, it just all marries up so well. And where the previous 2 tracks show how Neil could go so very wrong, this track shows how Neil can go so very right. So that closes out side 1 of the vinyl, and we open side 2 with Sunday Sun. Again, another fairly well-known track from the album. And I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. It's a great track. It doesn't quite live up to Brooklyn Roads. It's a great track. It's a really nice slow track. It does what it says on the tin. It's not necessarily a slow track in terms of a ballad, but it's you know, a bit of a slow pace. It's, I guess, flirting with mid-tempo, I suppose. But it's just a nice sort of bridging potentially into easy listening, and that's what some people criticise Neil Diamond for. It's certainly not adult contemporary, which some of his music can be confused for, but it certainly crosses over into easy listening, but I love it. I think it's a really good track. That one comes in at 2 minutes 47. So a lot of these tracks, I mean, Brooklyn Roads is 3 minutes and 39, which again might go to that single narrative, but Brooklyn Roads is a real deep song. But a lot of these tracks are quite poppy, and you will just see tracks like Brooklyn Roads filtering in Neil Diamond trying to get some of his more explorative songwriting in there, and that's what he'd filter in so much more throughout his career. But there are inklings of it on his first album, Uni Records. So, track number 7, and it's an interesting run now. I don't know if I'm right by saying this, and I really don't. I don't know whether this was all used as a bit of filler, the last 4 tracks, because I don't know if it's maybe perhaps if you took the 3 singles out, Sunday Sun, Brooklyn Roads and 2-Bit Manchild. I don't know if you took those out that it would sound normal to the album, but I just think after those 2 sublime tracks, Brooklyn Roads and Sunday Sun, these 4 tracks sound a little bit strange, a little bit different, and it's almost like he's experimenting a little bit here, but it's not to the detriment of at least 3 of these tracks anyway. And the first of these 4 is Holiday in Blues, which I'm going to give a 7 out of 10. This actually was released as a B-side to Brooklyn Roads, and there's a good beat here, plenty of groove, not nice lyrics here too, but it's not too deep and meaningful, but it's quite groovy. And I don't know what the instrument is used when it's a do 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 do. I've probably just done that dreadfully, but about the mid-section of the track, I don't know what the instrument. I'm going to sound like a right pillock here, but I don't actually know what that is. But it just sounds really good, and it goes well with the track. And yeah, it's a good poppy track actually, and it's one of my favourite tracks on the album. Looking back at times when he was young, going on holiday. But I don't know if it's kind of like holiday themed, but then it's also like tour themed as well. That kind of, you know, we've only got one room left and all that. I mean, it's not exactly Room at the Inn with Joseph and Mary, but it's that kind of thing with being young. And I don't know if it's meant to be a touring track or a holiday track. It's kind of in the middle there. Alright, Free from the End, track number 8. Is it track number 8? Yes, it is. Practically Newborn. A little bit poppy, but it's not too bad for what it sets out to do. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's certainly unique like the previous track, and again, it's a little bit too call and response, a little bit too more a little bit too call and response with the whole practically newborn. At least that's the way I feel. Practically newborn. You know, it's a little bit too poppy, and again, I Neil Diamond is at his best when he's really explorative with his themes. You'll see that on tracks like Morningside, tracks like I Am I Said. Trying to think of a lot more examples here. I could give a lot more examples. If you know what I mean, is another example. He's at his best, and it's so strange to listen to him like this when he's been a little bit restricted. But it's good for what it sets out to do. Again, 6 out of 10. And as I said earlier, it just makes side B of this album quite interesting. I'd love to actually speak to Neil about this and kind of figure out what the motivations are. Whether I'm reading it differently to perhaps what other people would be treating it like, I don't know. Anyway, we now move on to the penultimate track of the album, Knackelflerg. 5 out of 10 here. This is a bit of a misstep as well. With the whole at the start and all the orchestration, I thought, oh no, this is going to be dreadful. The Pot Smoker song is bad, this is going to be even worse. But it grows slightly, but only slightly. It's a little bit like honey dripping time for me, it's album filler, but 5 out of 10, it's not terrible. So we end off the album with a good track again, actually, a little bit like Holiday in Blues and Practically Newborn. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, and that is Merry Go Round. And this and a lot of the tracks on this album really highlights where Neil Diamond is just not appreciated at all for being a songwriter who writes catchy hooks. And interesting topic choice here as well, with the whole rich versus poor thing. And it's good instrumentation here. I enjoy this track. I don't know whether it's... I think it is. There we go. All selections composed by Neil Diamond. So it's produced by Tom Catalano. So he had some input, and I'm sure there's other people who've had some input along the way. But how Neil Diamond can orchestrate and compose is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. He is so underrated for that. I feel like, in one aspect, he's treated as a bit of a poppy throwaway artist of the 70s. You know, the wife's choice, the housewife's choice, if you like. But then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got a musician who's so explorative and so deep and meaningful. And there's such a disconnect between the two of those, and it frustrates me so much as a fan of Neil Diamond that people treat him as this throwaway housewife's figure, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people don't appreciate him for what he is as well. And I've changed hands. Housewife was on that hand, now it's on that hand. You can't use both hands for the same thing. Anyway. But yeah, I'm going to give that last track a 7 out of 10. And with all these album reviews, if you've never watched any of my album reviews before, I always take a rating from each track, that's why I do it, and divide it by the number of tracks that are on the album. Here there are 10 tracks, and all of the ratings together add up here to 67, so it brings the album to a 6.7 out of 10. And actually, compared to some of the reviews I've done in the past and how I've rated those at maybe 7 out of 10s, and they're, you know, really good albums, it's surprisingly high. But it just shows how the really top material here pulls up the poor album filler. And it's like that on a lot of Neil Diamond's material. I know it sounds a bit silly to say, but you don't remember the albums for the Knackelflergs and the Pot Smoker songs. You remember the album for the Brooklyn Roads of Sunday Sun. I know you can say that for a lot of artists, and you could use that as an excuse to say, well, exactly, Neil Diamond's not very good then, is he? He's not a very good musician. But what I'm trying to say here is that he's got some outstanding tracks, and if you put those on a compilation, you know, if you mixed half the tracks from this album or half the tracks from this album and made an album out of it, you'd have a really solid album. But again, it's just and I think it's probably with the early period as well. Bear in mind, this is still the 60s in 68, so things are changing. It's definitely the 70s where Neil Diamond develops his sound a lot more. But again, modern day version of Love, Brooklyn Road, Sunday Sun, some really top tracks. And if I was to pick my top 3 from this album, again, Brooklyn Roads would be number 1. I think modern day version of Love would have to be number 2. And again, based on the ratings, I think Sunday Sun, maybe Holiday in Blues would be number 3. Holiday in Blues is something a little bit different, potentially. But again, early signs of positivity for Neil Diamond in the Uni era, with deeper tracks, not the poppy stuff like he did with Bang. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is definitely an overlooked album in the Neil Diamond catalogue. And I'm really glad I've done that. I really enjoyed it, especially having more knowledge about Neil Diamond than other artists. It just allows me to improv a little bit more with these things. And if you've enjoyed that, make sure to leave a like down below. I'm definitely planning on doing more Neil Diamond reviews in the future. I want to go through his whole catalogue, slowly but surely. But I don't want to do it chronologically because you guys will get bored of that. So I might do, a review of this week. Like I said, in a few weeks' time, I might review Melody Road from 2014. I want to go through his catalogue, but doing it a bit randomly, just so I mix things up and there's a good run of his albums in the 70s, and I don't want to say brilliant, 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 and then get to Headed for the Future in 1986 and say, God, that was rubbish. And then Primitive in 1984 and say, oh, that wasn't very good. And Heartlight in 1982 and say, well, it was a mixed bag. And then get to Best Years of Our Lives in 88 and say, ooh, return to form. I don't want to be like that. I'd rather be a mixed bag in reviewing a great album one week and maybe not so much of his greater albums another week. Because with Neil Diamond, it's an artist that, to be fair, I'm not going to say what I'm going to say. I can talk about him all day. That's what I'm going to say now. And I'm going to stop this because it's coming in at over 20 minutes and I don't want to ramble on for too long. But again, if you enjoyed that, make sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for weekly album reviews and top 10s. I might do a top 10 Neil Diamond tracks, potentially from 60s, 70s, 80s. That'd be a good idea. If you guys like to see that, let me know down in the comments. But for now, I've been Toby from TIJ Music, and until the next one, thank you for your company, and I'll see you all later on. Goodbye for now.